The batteries were always AA. Ever-ready, red and silver packaging. She bought 2 every Saturday at Chukwuemeka's Hardware and General on Market Road, Owerri. The shop opened at 7 a.m. She arrived at 7:02, always 7:02, because the 8-kilometer walk from home took exactly 2 hours and 12 minutes if she kept her pace and didn't stop at the bridge to watch the herons. She was 19. Her name was Adaeze Obi. She had been making this walk every Saturday for 7 years. 2 batteries, same brand, same shop, same time. 120 naira per pair. She had spent approximately 43,680 naira on batteries since she was 12. She had done the math. She was good at math. She was good at most things that involved counting. Distances, prices, the number of steps between the front door and her father's chair, the number of hours between Saturday's fresh batteries and the following Friday's dying ones, the exact moment in the week when the radio's sound began to stretch and slow, like a recording running out of tape. Her father's radio was a Sony ICF-18, portable, analog. 2 speakers, one cracked from a fall in 2009. The tuning dial was stiff. The volume knob was loose. The antenna had been extended so many times, it now stayed extended permanently, like a finger pointing at something in the sky. Her father had bought it in 1998 from a shop in Lagos that no longer existed, and it had been the most important object in his world ever since. More important than the chair he sat in, or the table he ate at, or the bed he slept in. Because the chair, the table, and the bed existed in a darkness that had been permanent since 2001, when the diabetes took his eyesight in stages. First the edges, then the center, then everything, and left him in a world he could only hear. Chidi Obi was blind. Completely. He had been blind for 22 years. He was 58. He had been a school teacher before the darkness. Mathematics, which was the subject he loved most because mathematics existed independently of vision. You didn't need to see numbers. You needed to think them. He still thought them. He sat in his chair, a wooden chair with a cushion his wife had sewn before she died. The cushion faded now, but she was more faded. And he listened to the radio. He listened to the news. He listened to the broadcasts in Igbo and English. He listened to the static between stations, which he called the world thinking. He listened to the weather reports and adjusted his understanding of the sky accordingly. He listened to the music, high life mostly, the songs that contained the version of Nigeria he remembered before the dark. The radio was his window, his newspaper, his classroom, his connection to a world he could hear but couldn't participate in, beyond the walls of the compound where he spent his days. And the batteries, the ever-ready AA, red and silver, were the heartbeat of that connection. When they died, the window closed. When Adaeze replaced them, the window opened, every Saturday, for 7 years. Chukwuemeka noticed her on the first visit and had been noticing her ever since. He was the shop owner, 62, a large man with a patient disposition and the kind of memory that retail develops. He remembered what everyone bought, when they bought it, and whether they'd be back. It was the memory of commerce, not sentiment. Knowing customers was knowing inventory. But Adaeze was different. She was 12 when she first came in, small, walking alone. She had placed 2 ever-ready AA batteries on the counter and counted out the exact change. Coins, sorted by denomination, lined up on the counter like soldiers. "For a torch?" he had asked. "From my father's radio." She had come back the next Saturday, and the next, and every Saturday for 7 years. She never bought anything else. The transaction was always the same. 2 batteries, 120 naira, exact change, No conversation beyond "good morning" and "thank you." He had watched her grow from 12 to 19 in weekly increments. The specific time lapse of a shopkeeper who sees a customer for 2 minutes every 7 days and measures their life in the changes between visits. She got taller. Her face lost its softness. Her hands got rougher. She walked differently. At 12, the walk of a child running an errand. At 19, the walk of a woman performing a duty. He had never asked about the father. He had never asked about the mother. He had never asked why a girl, and then a young woman, walked 16 kilometers round trip every Saturday for a pair of batteries she could have asked someone to buy for her. He noticed other things. She never came with anyone. She never arrived late. She never bought a cheaper brand. And she never once looked at anything else in the shop. This last detail stayed with him. His shop sold everything: hardware, tools, radios, phones, chargers, torches, electrical supplies. She walked past racks of rechargeable batteries, past solar-powered radios, past devices that would have solved her Saturday walk with a single purchase. She walked past them with the fixed forward gaze of a person who had decided what the answer was and was not available for alternatives. 2 ever-ready AA, red and silver, every Saturday, 7 years. Chukwuemeka was a shopkeeper. He understood inventory. He understood demand. He did not understand devotion at this scale. The businessman arrived on a Wednesday. His name was Jude Omenka. He was 44. He had built a distribution company that supplied electronics to retailers across southeastern Nigeria: phones, radios, batteries, solar equipment. He was successful in the sense that his car was large and his office was in Owerri's business district, and his handshake was the kind that expected to be received. He visited Chukwuemeka's shop as part of a supplier review, checking stock, discussing terms, the standard circuit of a distributor maintaining his network. The visit was routine. The conversation was commercial. Until Chukwuemeka mentioned the girl. "I have one customer," Chukwuemeka said, leaning on his counter the way men lean when they're about to tell a story that has been sitting in them for a while. "She comes every Saturday. Has been coming for 7 years. She buys exactly 2 AA batteries, ever ready, never anything else. She walks 8 kilometers to get here and 8 kilometers back. She has never missed a week." Jude was checking a delivery manifest. He looked up. "Why?" "Her father's radio. He's blind. She keeps it running." 7 years? 7 years, every Saturday. Jude considered this. He was a businessman. He understood patterns, margins, customer behavior. A 16-kilometer weekly walk for 2 batteries was not behavior that appeared in any business model he had studied. "Why doesn't she buy a rechargeable radio?" he asked. "I don't know. I've never asked. She walks in, buys the batteries, walks out. 2 minutes. Once a week, for 7 years. Jude looked at the battery shelf. Ever-ready AA, red and silver. 120 naira per pair. Approximately 6,240 naira per year. 43,680 over 7 years. He ran the numbers the way he ran all numbers, automatically, without being asked. The reflex of a man who thought in margins and volumes. Then he did something he had never done in 20 years of distribution. He asked to meet the customer. "She comes Saturday," Chukwuemeka said. 7:02. "I'll be here." He was there. He sat in the corner of the shop, behind the solar panel display, with a cup of coffee and his phone, and the specific patience of a man who has cleared his Saturday morning for something he couldn't explain. She arrived at 7:02. The door opened. She walked in. 19, dark brown skin, a plain dress, rubber sandals worn thin on the left heel, her hair tied back, her expression the expression she always wore in the shop, purposeful and complete. She went to the battery shelf, selected 2 Ever-Ready AA, red and silver, placed them on the counter, counted the coins. 120 naira. Exact. "Good morning," she said.
"Good morning, Adeze," Chukwuemeka said. She took the batteries. She turned to leave. "Adeze," Chukwuemeka said. "This is Mr. Omenka. He supplies the batteries." She looked at Jude. The assessment was brief and comprehensive, the kind of assessment performed by a person who has walked alone on 8-kilometer roads for 7 years and has developed the ability to evaluate strangers in 2 seconds.
"Good morning," she said.
"Good morning."
Jude stood.
"Chukwuemeka tells me you've been buying batteries here for 7 years."
"Yes."
"For your father's radio?"
"Yes."
"May I ask why?"
She held the batteries, the packet, the red and silver, the weight of them, specific and familiar in her hand.
"Because the radio is how my father hears the world," she said. "And the world runs on batteries."
She left. Jude watched her go. He watched her walk out the door and turn right toward the road that led to the 8-kilometer homeward walk. He watched her rubber sandals carry her toward a man who couldn't see her, but could hear the world she brought him every Saturday. He sat in the corner of the shop for a long time after she left. Then he got in his car and followed her. Not on the road, at a distance, on the parallel track, the way he drove through his distribution network, observing routes, measuring distances, understanding the infrastructure of movement. He drove slowly. She walked at her pace, the pace of a person who had optimized 2 hours and 12 minutes of walking into an exact science. He followed her 8 kilometers. The house was at the end of a footpath off the main road, small, compound style, a zinc roof, a yard with a mango tree, a chair under the mango tree, a wooden chair with a faded cushion. A man was sitting in the chair, dark skin, thin, eyes that looked at nothing and saw nothing. A radio on a small table beside him, an old Sony ICF-18 antenna permanently extended, the sound of a morning news broadcast in Igbo coming through the one working speaker. The radio was on. The batteries were dying. The sound was stretching, slower, lower, the vowels elongating, the news becoming a drawl. Adeze walked into the yard. She kissed her father's forehead. She took the radio. She opened the battery compartment with the practiced speed of someone who has opened it 364 times. She removed the old batteries. She inserted the new ones. She turned the radio on. The sound came back, clear, full. The news snapped into its proper speed. The world returned to the chair under the mango tree with the fidelity of 2 fresh, ever-ready AA batteries. The blind man smiled. Not a large smile, a recalibration, the face adjusting to the return of something essential. The smile of a man who lost his eyesight and kept his ears and trusted his daughter to keep them working. "Saturday already?" he said. "Saturday already," she said. She sat on the step. He listened to the radio. The mango tree shaded them both. Jude Omenka sat in his car at the end of the footpath and watched. He watched for 20 minutes. He watched the girl sit with her father. He watched the radio play. He watched the mango tree move in the breeze. Then he turned the car around and drove back to Owerri. He went to his warehouse. He found what he was looking for: a solar-powered radio, digital, rechargeable, a panel that charged in 4 hours and ran for 12. It would never need batteries. It would never slow down. It would never close the window. He drove back. He parked at the footpath. He walked to the compound. Adeze was still sitting with her father. She saw him. Her expression was the expression she had given him in the shop. Assessment, brief, comprehensive. "Mr. Omenka," she said, not surprised, not welcoming. "I brought something," he said. He held out the solar radio. She looked at the sleek device, the solar panel, the digital display. She looked at it for a long time. "No," she said. Jude blinked. "No?" "Thank you, but no." He held the radio. The radio that would solve the Saturday walk. The radio that would save 16 kilometers per week, 832 kilometers per year, a lifetime of Saturdays spent walking to a shop for a product that technology had made unnecessary. "It charges with the sun," he said. "It never needs batteries. It would save you. I know what it would save me." She was polite. She was firm. She was the specific kind of firm that meant the decision was not available for revision. "My father doesn't want a new radio." "Have you asked him?" She looked at her father. The blind man in the chair, listening to the Sony with the cracked speaker and the stiff dial and the antenna that pointed at the sky. "He's had that radio for 25 years, she said. "It was the last thing he bought before he went blind. It's the last thing he remembers buying with his eyes." The shape of it, the weight, the way the dial feels under his fingers. He knows this radio the way I know the road to Owerri. By feel, by memory. She paused. "A new radio would be a stranger in his hands. He would have to learn it. And a blind man learning a new object it's not about the object. It's about trust. He trusts this one. It sounds like his world. A new one would sound different. Better, maybe, but different." She looked at Jude. At the businessman with the solar radio and the good intentions, and the problem-solving reflex that assumed every problem wanted a solution. "The walk is not the problem," she said. "The walk is how I take care of my father. If you take away the walk, you take away the thing I can do." Jude held the solar radio. The solution that wasn't wanted. The answer to a question nobody had asked. He looked at the girl, at the old Sony, at the blind man in the chair. "Can I sit down?" he said. She moved on the step. He sat. The mango tree shaded them. The radio played Igbo news. They sat for an hour. He learned the schedule, the 2-hour walk, the battery purchase, the 2-hour return. He learned about her father, the mathematics teacher, the diabetes, the 22 years of darkness. He learned about her mother, dead when Adeze was 8, quietly, the way some people die, without spectacle, leaving behind a cushion on a chair, and a daughter who decided that keeping the radio alive was the non-negotiable. "Why batteries?" he asked. "Specifically, why Everready?" "Because those were the batteries in the radio when my mother was alive. My mother bought them. After she died, I kept buying the same ones." She picked at the rubber of her sandal, the left one, worn thin. "My father can't see the batteries, but I know that if I changed the brand, something would be different. The weight in the compartment, the way the lid clicks, something small, and he would know." "Know what?" "That something had changed. And for a blind man who has lost almost everything, his eyes, his wife, his career, knowing that something has changed is the same as losing something else." Jude sat with this. The businessman, the distributor, the man who sold batteries by the container load, and had never once considered what a single pair meant to a single man in a chair under a mango tree. "You walk 16 kilometers every week," he said, "to make sure nothing changes." "I walk 16 kilometers every week," she said, "to make sure he knows I'm still here." He didn't give up. He didn't try to change the radio again. He didn't try to change the batteries. He tried something else. He came back the following Saturday. He was at the shop at 7 a.m. When Adeze arrived at 7:02, the batteries were already on the counter. 2 ever-ready AA, red and silver, and beside them, a pair of shoes. Not expensive shoes. Good shoes. Walking shoes. Durable sole, proper arch support. The kind of shoe a person wears to walk 8 kilometers without destroying their feet. "I can't change the radio," he said. "I can't change the batteries. But I can change the walk." She looked at the shoes, at the soles,
At the pragmatism of a man who had understood the problem was not the problem, and had found the adjacent thing he could actually help with. She tried them on. They fit. "Thank you," she said. "I'll be here next Saturday," he said, "with the batteries." "I can buy my own batteries." "I know, but I'd like to walk with you." She looked at him, at the businessman who had followed her home, offered a solution she didn't want, sat on her step for an hour, and was now asking to walk 16 kilometers for 2 batteries. "Why?" she said. "Because I've been distributing batteries for 20 years, he said. "I've never once seen where they end up. I've never sat with the person whose world runs on them. I sell by the 1,000. You buy by the pair. And your pair matters more than my 1,000. She considered this. The assessment, brief, comprehensive, the specific judgment of a woman who walked alone on long roads. 7:02, she said. "Don't be late." He wasn't late. He was there at 6:58, with the batteries. They walked together, 8 kilometers, 2 hours and 12 minutes, the pace she set, the pace he matched. He was slower than her. His shoes were better. His fitness was worse. By kilometer 4, he was breathing hard. By kilometer 6, he was quiet in the focused way of a man who was working harder than he expected. By kilometer 8, he was understanding something he hadn't understood from the car. The walk was not incidental. The walk was the point. 2 hours of footpath and sunlight and birdsong and the specific meditation of a body moving through a landscape. That was the purchase. The batteries were just what she carried home. They arrived at the compound. She changed the batteries. "The radio came back to life." Her father smiled. "You brought someone," the blind man said. Not a question. He had heard 2 sets of footsteps. "A friend," Adeze said. "Does the friend have a name?" "Jude Omenka," Jude said. "I supply batteries." The blind man turned his head toward Jude's voice. The specific head turn of a man who locates people by sound rather than sight. "You supply the batteries my daughter walks 16 kilometers to buy." "Yes, sir." "Then sit. Anyone who helps keep the world running should rest." Jude sat, under the mango tree, beside the chair, the radio between them, the news in Igbo. He came back the next Saturday, and the next. He walked every week, 16 kilometers. He brought the batteries. He sat under the mango tree. By the 3rd week, the blind man was asking him questions about the battery business, about distribution, about the logistics of moving products across southeastern Nigeria. The questions were sharp. The mind behind them was the mind of a mathematics teacher who had lost his vision but not his capacity. By the 5th week, Jude was bringing newspapers, printed in large format, which Adeze read to her father in the evenings. By the 7th week, he was bringing a small generator and a phone charger, because Adeze's phone was dying, and a dead phone in a village 8 kilometers from town was a safety concern he couldn't ignore. He didn't replace the radio. He didn't change the brand. He surrounded the ritual with infrastructure: the shoes, the newspapers, the charger, the company on the walk, without touching the thing itself. The radio played. The batteries lasted a week. Adeze walked. By month 4, the walks had become something else. Not romantic, not yet, not in any declared way. Something slower, more structural. The specific bond that forms between two people who walk long distances together every week and fill the kilometers with conversation and silence in equal proportions. She told him things on the road she hadn't told anyone, about her mother's death, about the year after when she was 12 and the batteries were the only thing she could control, about the way she measured her weeks in voltage: fresh batteries on Saturday, dying batteries by Friday, the specific anxiety of Thursday nights when the radio slowed and her father's face changed. He told her things, too, about his business, about the loneliness of success without context, about the fact that he sold batteries by the container load and had never once considered the human on the other end until a shopkeeper mentioned a girl who walked 8 kilometers for 2 of them. The blind man heard the change, not in their words, in the frequency. Jude's visits were now not only Saturday. They were Wednesday evening sometimes, Sunday afternoon. The footsteps that accompanied Adeze's footsteps increased. "Your battery friend," the blind man said one evening. "He's a friend," Adeze said. "He walks 8 kilometers for batteries he could mail. He likes the walk. Nobody likes the walk. They like who they walk with." She said nothing. The radio played. Her father smiled. The proposal was not a proposal, not in any traditional sense. There was no ring, no dinner, no declaration on a knee. It was a Saturday, month 8, the walk. Kilometer 4, the exact midpoint, the bridge with the herons that Adeze had been stopping to watch since she was 12. They stopped. The herons were fishing. The river was low. "I want to build a road," he said. She looked at him. "A road from the main road to your father's compound. Graded, maintained, passable by vehicle in every season." "We don't need a road." "You need a road. Not for the batteries, for the clinic. Your father's diabetes needs management. The closest clinic is 11 kilometers. A road would bring it to 3. She was quiet. The herons fished. "A road would change everything," she said. "People would come. The village would notice." "The village should notice. Your father is a mathematics teacher. The village could have a schoolroom." She looked at the river, at the herons, at the man whose solution to a problem she hadn't named was infrastructure, the way hers was batteries, small, consistent, the thing you could carry. "You're not building a road," she said. "You're building a reason to keep coming." He looked at her. The businessman, the distributor, the man who had learned to walk 16 kilometers every Saturday because a shopkeeper told him about a girl, and the girl had told him that the walk was the point. "Yes," he said. "I am." She looked at the herons. They landed and lifted and landed again with the patience of creatures who had all the time in the world. "Then build it," she said. "But the batteries stay ever ready, red and silver. That doesn't change." "That never changes," he said. They walked the remaining 4 kilometers. They arrived at the compound.
She changed the batteries. The radio came back. The blind man smiled his Saturday smile. "Your battery friend has been quiet today," he said. "He's thinking," Adeze said. "About what?" "About a road." The blind man turned the radio's dial, gently, the stiff tuning knob, his fingers finding the station the way they always found it, by memory, by feel, by trust. "Good," he said. "Roads lead places." The radio played. The mango tree gave shade. The afternoon settled around a blind man, his daughter, and the man who had followed a pair of batteries to the end of a footpath and found, at the end of it, everything he didn't know he was looking for. Thanks for watching. If someone has been walking for you, you know who they are. Thank them today. Tell us where you're watching from.